Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode. I'm so excited to introduce you to Dr. Felice and Heather. Today, we became instant friends. It was one of those conversations where we truly could have talked for hours, just so aligned. They actually sent me an email about coming onto the podcast, and it caught my eye because they are creating a skincare brand around Chinese medicine. And I love acupuncture. I truly can't say enough about acupuncture. I love Chinese medicine. I love learning about how the body has the capability to heal when we create the right environment. And we were able to get into like all the juicy details of that, their wisdom, because they grew up in Hong Kong and they grew up with Chinese medicine just as a foundation of life. So we were able to talk about so much. We talked about the traditions they've had that have supported their health and the energy in their body. We talked about some trends that are going on right now in the US and ones that are definitely a red flag according to Chinese medicine. They shared about their experience of coming to the US and all of a sudden experiencing different issues with digestion or acne in their health, and how they were able to go back to their roots to really ground in and find ways of finding balance within themselves. We talked about their upcoming skincare line, all the energy and intention that they've put behind it, as well as the foundation of Chinese medicine being present there. We talked about so much. You just have to come on in and listen. I think you're going to really love them, love their energy, and love the conversation. I hope you enjoy. So excited you guys are here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having both of us.
Of course. As I was
treat.
saying, like when I have just ideas for guests or reach outs, like there's usually one thing that really stands out to me. And what I was just sharing with you guys off camera was just your connection to traditional Chinese medicine and your lifestyle, the journey you've been through, and also what you're creating and bringing into the world now. So I want to talk about all of those things.
We're excited to share.
Yeah, it's our life and it brings us so much joy. And we're just hoping that everyone feels as joyful when they learn about it too.
Yeah. And I think also coming in as sisters as well and working together.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. It's such a nice thing.
It's easy.
99% of the times it's beautiful.
Of course, with any business.
With anything, right? I know. It's so true. I feel like today we have access to so much information, and it's so great that we can rely on these ancient practices that have always been there and always been a system, but now I think a lot more energy and light is coming around it because we have access to so much, and we're able to really like tune in to what works and be able to find balance within the body, knowing the body wants to heal.
Yes, 100%.
And if we work with it the right way, we can do that. We could find that space. And I think traditional Chinese medicine it reminds me of yogic medicine as well, and like yogic science, because that's been around for thousands of years. And people now are like all about the cold plunges, and yogis have been talking about cold showers forever, and all about like the lymphatic drainage, and yogis have been talking about that too. And I feel like you see a similar aspect of Chinese
There's
medicine.
so many synergies there.
Yeah. So I would love to hear a little bit about your journey, how it kind of started for you, where you feel like this journey began. And I would love for you to take us through that.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I'll dive in. I mean, and Chinese medicine for us started when we were both young girls in our whole household. Definitely the way that we ate and approach life. I mean, it's the whole foods. It's understanding food as medicine. It's drinking broths every single night with Chinese herbs and food that healed us from the inside out. And then when we came to the US for college, a lot of that shifted. Our health shifted. Heather with gut issues, me with my own skin issues.
Was it literally as soon as you arrived?
Yeah, for Heather's
gut
oh my
issues was
gosh,
an
just
immediate
like
impact.
that.
Yeah, always bloated.
Yeah,
Energy levels.
I mean,
all
that goes
over the
to
place.
show the food and the quality and almost kind of the backward system, because every single day the food that we would get would be from what markets? It's fresh. You would get a fish that's live. You would get, vegetables that were picked from the farm that day. And that was the norm of how you would get food. Whereas here it's the supermarkets that are cheaper, but farmers markets that are expensive, and that's the fresh food. And it was a little bit difficult for us to adjust to that and to find what worked for us. And we both went back to Chinese medicine to heal. And I continued to study it. I was in Western medicine for most of my childhood, studied neuroscience and pre-med in college, worked in a hospital, and then I took a shift because I was almost frustrated with the Band-Aid solutions and wanted to get to the root of what wellness is truly, at what it truly is, and the preventative nature of it.
Yeah. And I think like from a traditional Chinese medicine standpoint, when I moved to the US and dealt with gut issues, I went the Western route and got tested for a multitude of like tests, from celiacs to getting an endoscopy. And the outcome of this doctor was just telling me that I had IBS. So what was the ultimate solution? He asked me to write in my diary for 365 days, every single thing I ate. So I tracked every foods that would irritate my gut. And after that year, I knew what irritated my gut, but it didn't go to the ultimate solution as to how to heal my body. And so that time, Felice was in traditional Chinese medicine school. And kind of like as a last saving grace, I was like, Felice, like I really need a solution to really help with my gut. You know, it's not just like what you eat. And that's when I learned that it was also about, you know, the mental state and mindfulness of your body. And at that time, I was also in private equity. So I was stressed 24/7. So that's when I went back to the mindfulness side of traditional Chinese medicine and started eating like how we ate growing up. So eating more broth soups, warmer foods, avoided the salads, avoided the cold ice drinks, and avoided the smoothies. And that's what really healed me. And so this morning routine of, you know, starting my body with very warm, nourishing drinks, I think has really been helping, as well as the mindfulness side. Yeah. And that's what we really want to share to the Western world.
It's been such a hard journey for me to shift, and I've wanted to for so long. Like I run hot. I have a lot of air I run cold. I have a lot of air in the body.
Same.
My feet right now are frozen. Like I'm thinking about my feet right now. I'm like, you're so cold. I'm so sorry I didn't like warm this body more today. But it's been such a hard journey because here we want to do the juices, especially in the wellness space. We want to drink the juices and get all those nutrients from the juices. We want to have the smoothies with all of our wellness supplements in there. And it's like, we're doing all of these great things for ourselves, but is it to an extreme? And are there actually like other ways that our body would actually feel healthier and safer?
Yes.
And I've started to be so much more conscious around warming foods. I actually go to acupuncture once a week.
That's
At
lovely.
one time I was going almost twice a week. Obsessed.
Oh, we love that.
And she put me on herbs. And
Yes.
so she started me on like these like level 2 herbs. Like I don't really know what they are, but she gives them to me. I trust her. I'm like, I'm doing it. I felt so good on them. Then she
Were you drinking them, or were they in capsules?
No, capsules.
Perfect.
Then she gave me a level 3 herb, and it all aligned to my cycle. So I started taking level 3 herbs, and I started to notice that I was warmer and like almost I would go into a workout and my body would be freezing for like the first 10 minutes. Like I was warming up really quickly, sweating really quickly. Then I started to get concerned about it. I did not connect it to the herbs at all. I'm like, why am I warm? What's going on? And I went back and spoke to her, and she was explaining to me that like the first herb she gave me is the yin energy, and the second one is the yang energy. And it was all a good thing, and I should continue to take them. But I could not believe how
Just
much
the
I
drastic
really
difference.
felt. And I feel into the subtleties. I'm a very sensitive person, but I couldn't believe it. And there's just so much truth to that. The body wants to feel warm, especially being a woman. I think it's really important with our cycle.
For sure.
Warming ourselves.
Warmth is our friend. And
Yeah.
one of the most important premises of what Chinese medicine is warmth is our friend because it moves our qi, which is our energy, and our blood. And with movement, there's no stagnations. And when we have ailments, when we have any issues with our body, it's when stagnations happen. And that's when things are constricted, and cold is the biggest culprit. Like when we think about ice cold water and how the ice congeals in water, when we put that in our body, that's what's happening. It's causing stagnation points everywhere. Why period cramps happen when people drink ice cold water, when gut issues occur, because everything is so cold and we need warmth. We need our yang to invigorate our body and to give us health.
And the number one rule that we tell ourselves is that when we have our periods, warm foods, warm drinks, socks on your feet, cover your back, just try to stay as warm as possible.
Yeah. I recently learned that in other countries, a woman's not even allowed to sit on like a chair or a bench without something under, like between her and the bench, to keep that area warm. Like the back.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, it really does. So when you guys were younger, this was part of your everyday because it's part of your culture. While you were eating it, did you understand the impact? Like, was that part of the conversation, or was it kind of like, this is what we do?
Yes and no. It was more so what we do, right? We had these broth soups every single dinner, and we drink a broth before we ate anything. Even if we had, even if our mother or dad cooked us a bolognese pasta, right? We drink this Chinese broth, which was, collagen rich with some type of protein and Chinese herbs.
I want this broth.
It's so delicious. It's something that I crave all the time. When we go home to Hong Kong, it's the first thing we have.
I think, and I think when you talk, like when we say like the foods and the soups that we drink every single day, our parents would teach us like, oh, this snow fungus or this specific like snow fungus mushroom is really good for collagen, right?
Wow.
And based on their beliefs and based on their culture that they learned from their traditions and from their parents and grandparents, they then share it to us, right? But I think what's also fascinating is that Felice and I both grew up in Hong Kong, yet when you think of traditional Chinese medicine and you think of the 4 buckets, right? There's acupuncture, herbs, food as medicine, and mindfulness. We were introduced to the latter 3, but we weren't introduced to acupuncture growing up, which is a little bit ironic.
Yeah, now that I am a Chinese medicine doctor, and it's what I do and what I enjoy the most. But I think it was because we were grateful where as kids we were not sick children. We had a lot of energy. We were always active. We were doing sports. We never had fatigue issues. Our periods were healthy. And it all started when we came to the US, and so we're like, okay, let's go back to acupuncture to heal. And that's when I shifted, from my Western medicine background, from studying neuroscience and pre-med to saying, hey, this is not for me, and going back to Chinese medicine school. And it gave us such a deeper understanding of the medicine.
And our connection back to our traditions.
Back to our roots.
So beautiful.
But I would say, like, what's very interesting is that we didn't grow up with acupuncture, and even in Hong Kong, what is seen as highly regarded is Western medicine, right? The Western world as being, the higher medicine. And so our parents also growing up, we would always shift towards what was known and what was the social construct in the Western world, right? So acupuncture as a medicine was ironically introduced to both of us when we both moved to the US.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's that little shift of
and it's fascinating, and especially now post-COVID, where everyone's understanding a new way of wellness, right?
Yeah.
That they built the first Chinese medicine specific hospital in Hong Kong during COVID, because it was the only thing that actually cured COVID. It really dissipated all the symptoms. It wasn't just a medicine to help with, your breath, the lungs, the phlegm, whatever you were experiencing, but they were targeted to the symptoms you were feeling. So then it would kind of dispel it. And so now it's amazing to see that because it's growing in the West, it's coming back to the East as the regarded medicine, and combining that with Western and Eastern. I think it's the future here too. Yeah.
Wow. So you think because it's gaining popularity here, it's making like a second wave there?
Yes, for sure. I mean, in Hong Kong, for example, if you studied medicine, you would be the top scorer. You go to the UK, study Western medicine, and bring it back to Hong Kong. Whereas if you didn't get the best marks, you would go to the traditional routes. And because of the way that it's structured, not through the Western medicine institution, it wasn't regarded as the best medicine. But I think people are shifting, understanding, there's a reason why it's thousands of years old. There's a reason why it still exists, because it works. And we have to change our mindset about our health.
But we're also saying, like, we're also trying to like share to the world that both Western and Eastern can synergistically exist together.
And it should,
And it should. And I think that's the whole premise of the skincare brand that we are launching with next month.
So exciting.
It combines like the Eastern and Western aspects of, of our culture, bringing Eastern traditions to the Western hemisphere, combining Eastern herbs in our products with Western innovation. So it's really playing with the duality of it.
Really cool. So what are some of those innovations?
So for example, our moisturizer on a traditional Chinese medicine perspective has herbs such as wild chrysanthemum. And wild chrysanthemum, we grew up drinking it in teas to really cool our system and bodies when we would eat the heavy foods for dim sum. And externally, it helps with it's very anti-inflammatory. So it helps with anti-inflammation on your skin. And we're also implementing pearl powder. And pearl powder has saved Felice's skin by ingesting it. but it's also very powerful when you put it externally.
Topically.
Yeah, topically, and it helps with luminizing, it helps with fine lines, it helps with that, glow on your face. But we're also, for example, putting niacinamide, hyaluronic acid, those, hot terms that everyone knows in the Western world, and we just want to combine both.
Yeah, and it's absolutely okay with the properties of it because the herbs are so gentle but effective. In our serum, for example, we have wild chrysanthemum and orange peel, which are the highlight herbs, among others too. And orange peel is so rich in vitamin C, but it's not as intense as vitamin C because for us, vitamin C breaks our skin out because it's too active. So how can we find an alternative of an herb that is amazing externally and internally? Because everything you can put on your skin in our products, from a Chinese standpoint, you can also ingest. And that goes to show that it's amazing for the body. It's, not a chemical that is going to harm your body. So how can we introduce this to the world? And we're excited because with every order, we also have a chrysanthemum flower, like a large flower and a tea mug that people can drink, relax, kind of change their nervous system, make sure it's in the parasympathetic state, and put on some skincare to make it a well-rounded routine.
Yeah. I feel like our mental state, our inner energy affects our outer appearance so much. I don't know if you've seen the trending cortisol face that I saw on TikTok a lot.
Like it's the moon face.
It's true. Our nervous system impacts every other system of our body. And when we can come into that calmer state, it really does.
Exactly. Skin is ultimately a manifestation of how you treat your body.
Yeah.
So we are really trying to emphasize through traditional Chinese medicine, like beauty truly comes from within. And I'm sure with your experience getting acupuncture too, they really focus on the imbalances within your body that ultimately exists and shows, externally. And that's our whole goal.
Yeah. I actually very often can't believe the effects I feel from acupuncture. And I'm like, if everyone could just try this and do it and see.
The whole world would be transformed. We'd all be relaxed.
It's wild.
But also, it's funny because in my clinic, we call it the acu high that people leave because they're so relaxed, but also they have the energy to work throughout the whole day, but a whole different state.
Yeah.
One day, I hope that's the goal.
So you practice right now?
I do. I have my clinic in Los Angeles. I manage a few practitioners and I love it. It's what brings me most joy, and I was able to combine my passion for Chinese medicine and healing patients with Moonbow and combining Heather's expertise with business and private equity because to us, it's so special to us. And we're like, how can we share this medicine on a wide scale? What avenue do we want to enter? And for us, it was skincare because our mother introduced it to us as young girls, as 8-year-olds. She's like, this is a skincare routine. It's, really big in Asian culture. And we're like, what is the best way to introduce it to the world that isn't, time consuming or expensive, because it is, right? It's a barrier of entry. So we're like, okay, skincare is perfect because we're able to put these herbs that we grew up eating, but also putting on our skin. So let's share it with the world and also then share the other avenues of Chinese medicine, including acupuncture.
Wow, you said it perfectly.
And it's so nice that it was part of your tradition, like that you guys are sisters. It's something you did with your mom at a young age and that you're bringing it to life now. And what was the journey like deciding, how did you come to this revelation that you were going to start to go into skincare and share it?
That's, I guess from my perspective, like our parents are more traditional Chinese, and growing up in Hong Kong, you would either, like as your career, you would either pick 3 careers: be a doctor, be a lawyer, or be in finance. So growing up, there was 3 options. So she was practicing Western medicine and I was in finance. And so that was essentially the cookie cutter, seen as highly regarded success story being in our culture. And I guess Felice was the quote unquote first to rebel when she discovered that Eastern medicine was her calling. It took me 7 years to realize that, becoming an entrepreneur and, quitting 7 years of comfort, but no fulfillment, right? And at that time, it was late 2023. I think at that point, I was like, I just need to find something that I feel more fulfilled in, and I feel like I have more of a purpose than just sitting behind 2 monitors, doing something for a huge institution. So I called Felice up and I was like, we really need to start this skincare brand because we've been talking about it for years, but neither of us had been thinking about executing. So I dropped everything and I was like, Felice, I'm going to start researching and we're just going to do this. And so we agreed. And with her expertise in traditional Chinese medicine and her being a doctor as well, and her getting that accolade has really helped like really push this forward.
Yeah, but I have to say Heather was the reason why it started, right? You know, and she started doing other research when she was still in private equity. And I think you did it for about 5 months and you're like, wow, there's momentum. I can't do both.
Yeah.
She used to take meetings in her office and people were like, what's this meeting for? You're like,
my team is so laser focused on everything I was doing. And so every single time I'd go in a room, they would be like, what meeting were you in? And I was like, just a meeting.
They knew. Yeah. But that was that was the time where you're like, okay, this is meant for us and it feels so aligned. And just what TCM is, where it's about balancing the yin and yang and finding true balance, because that's where you heal. It's Heather and I in a nutshell, right? I'm the yin, she's the yang.
I'm the more fiery one.
Okay. I actually wanted you to go more into that.
Yes.
Like, what does that look
like?
like?
Go back into, so actually explain Moonbow.
Okay, so I guess we can start with why Moonbow and why the name of Moonbow. So Moonbow is a rainbow around a moon. And in Chinese medicine, it's the polar opposites, where the moon is very yin, it's feminine, it's dormant, you know, it's quiet, it's peaceful, it's the nighttime, where a rainbow is vibrant, it's beautiful, it's colorful. And so a moonbow at night with certain conditions, you can kind of see a rainbow around it. And it's so beautiful and it's a pretty rare phenomenon. So like, this is perfect to describe what Chinese medicine is. It's a perfect balance that is beautiful. And it ties on us as twins. We're identical twins, but we're opposites with how we go about our life, our career, our personality, but also our skincare alignment. It's East and West. It's us coming from Hong Kong, coming to the US and trying to really blend everything to show everyone that balance is the way that life is supposed to be.
Yeah. And I mean, it's also really funny because I live in New York and I'm the fiery one. You know, Felice is in LA. Like, we both practice wellness, but in very different perspectives.
ways.
Like, she's more of a yogi, Pilates girl. I lift every day. You know, it's kind of those opposites. For her birthday last year, for example, she had a shaman come in and she had a pajama tea party and was making candles, and I went clubbing. You know, but there's always that balance and that lifestyle balance that we just want to share, that whatever balance you find that works for you, monetize that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that about you guys. That's so nice. Yeah. And I love it about the product too, that it has that energy within it. And because it's just like, we're all coming from different places, different interests, different things that work for us. But then there's that space that we could all meet, you know?
Yeah. Felice, I'd love for you. She's more of the expert. So I feel like the reason why we love traditional Chinese medicine is because it's more preventative.
Happy to dive into that.
Yeah.
I think, you know, there's this understanding of the word medicine in the Western world is when you get treated only when you have some type of ailment or symptom, right? You go to the doctor when you have when you're sick, right? You get medicine when you have a flu. You get medicine when something is diagnosable from a Western medicine standpoint, whether it's hypothyroidism, whether it's anything with, you know, painful periods, you know, menarche or menopause, whatever happens, that's when you get treatment. But Chinese medicine is all about this space in between, that you're off balance, that then you can go back and revert to balance. So then none of these issues that are diagnosable happens. And it's a type of medicine that is preventative, right? From a Western standpoint, because let's say you're on a scale. And Chinese medicine looks at, okay, imbalances in the body, in the meridian system, where then if you don't get treated, yes, then maybe one day you'll be diagnosable per Western standpoint, but there's so much room in between that can bring you back into balance. And we have to learn how we can do that. And so much of it is a nervous system reset, right? Is making sure that we're in our parasympathetic state so we can heal, because that's when all the healing happens. But we live in this modern world where most of the time we're so active, we're in the fight or flight state, we're stressed. And so that's why so many issues are coming about, right? And, you know, the food and the quality of food and, you know, the being in the US sometimes doesn't help with that because it keeps you in that stress state. So to share with the world, okay, there's so much room here. How can we learn to bring us back into balance where we can actually heal, and how do we find those methods? And we just want to share that through our traditions.
Yeah.
It's so true. And I've seen that so much just in wanting to take the power back over my health and my life and wanting to do things that are preventative. It's often out of pocket. It's not something that insurance that we pay so much for would ever cover. And things like acupuncture has been something that is like that for me, like bringing me back into balance and being preventative in ways. Have you guys done facial acupuncture too? Do you practice that?
Love it.
The one time
Love. I love doing that in clinic and to see the results. But it's fascinating because someone will come in for cosmetic acupuncture, right? And in itself, it's amazing for collagen build. It lifts the muscles. It's essentially a Botox alternative, and it lasts so much longer, and it's all natural. So someone will come in to get a lot of needles in the face, and it's not painful. You know, it's so scary, right?
Yeah.
But also
the lips are a little painful. I've done that.
Yes, because it's so sensitive, but also I'm sure you've also gotten points on the body as well.
Oh my gosh,
because
of course, yeah.
The points on the body, it kicks your nervous system to the parasympathetic where you're healing, and you need to do that to heal your skin. So sometimes people are like, oh, it's all just the face, you know, we're going to get a facial, we're going to do things here, but this is not going to heal to the extent it can if your body's not relaxed. And I think that's why cosmetic acupuncture is so special, because even with points on the face, it connects to the rest of your body, and it just kicks your system into this rest and digest parasympathetic state.
Have you gotten
I haven't in a while. I was getting it consistently. I think I was going like every week at one point. Or
And you have to sometimes.
I think it was. I can't remember back, but it was amazing. And there was gua sha involved.
Yeah.
It was unreal.
I guess when you would go get acupuncture, like what were the main reasons for going and for healing?
Yeah, so in the beginning, it was facial, like doing all facial rejuvenation, which I really do need to go back to. But right now, it's hormone balancing and focusing on my cycle and just optimizing that time.
That's wonderful.
So those are the reasons why I went. Gratefully, I feel like, you know, there was nothing significantly wrong where I needed. But it's just like,
but it's still so important. Like,
it is.
I really, like I really wish it was normalized in Western society to go get help to prevent from getting to that stage where you actually need help, right? So, you know, kind of doing the quote unquote tune-ups on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis that works for you, so that you don't get to a point where you have to get surgery or you really need help, right?
And medication too, right? You know, and this push of pharmaceuticals, and whether that's the right method. And yes, sometimes it's really necessary, but there's a lot that could have been done before that was necessary.
That's kind of how I move about my life. Like I try my best to try it the natural way. And then there's always that time where it's like, okay, now I need an additional intervention. But acupuncture has been that for me for a few different cases and reasons to try and allow the body to do what it needs to do on its own.
And
I like float out of there. I feel
floating.
it really reminds me of the state I got into when I chant mantra. Like I have a really solid meditation practice, and I'll chant mantra for an hour some days. And I just feel like every cell in my body, it feels as if they all become like in sync and synchronized. And that's how I feel in acupuncture. Like a bunch of cells just vibrating.
Oh my gosh, I wish I had the visual. There's visuals of someone's blood before and after acupuncture. And before it's chaotic, and after it's just a smooth flow. And that's what we say, the chi, or the energy moving slowly. And you also mentioned something that I want to touch upon, how you go consistently, right?
Yes.
And it's important because someone will come and be like, I just want to try acupuncture once. And I'd be like, that's awesome. I'm so happy to introduce it to you. But if you want to get better, you have to come consistently.
Just like anything, just like a skincare routine, just like anything.
It's not a one and done. And sometimes people feel frustrated because they're like, I tried it. I went twice and it didn't work. And I was like, it's not that it didn't work, is you didn't give it enough time. And there has to be an education around it, because we're using what our body has. We're just changing it. We're not putting anything into it that's external, right? They're just needles that are activating meridian system, that are entering energy wells to create a flow. And it's amazing, but it takes time and consistency.
So from what I understand, there are different like sets that you do based off of what the person's trying to achieve. Like if there's something hormonal, there's like a set of meridians that help to activate that.
Yes.
Is that true? Okay.
Yes, to in a nutshell, So essentially, when someone comes in, Chinese medicine practitioners will figure out what's imbalance based on a pattern diagnosis. So let's say you share a ton of symptoms. It ties us back to, which organs are imbalanced, which meridians are blocked, and then you will resort to there. And so hormone is very tied to the spleen, the kidneys, the liver, which are so amazing for women's health. And so we look to those channels because a lot of the symptoms that people exhibit are tied to that. For example, PMS symptoms. Right? People feel irritable, their breasts are tender, they get bad period cramps. And a lot of that is tied to the liver channel and the liver qi stagnation, which is what we call the stress that we feel in here. And because everything's blocked, that's why your breasts are tender, that's why you're irritable. So then we target that organ and that channel.
I want to be on the table right now.
Yeah,
like, just you even talking about it.
I should have brought needles with me.
Oh my God, you should
at home. I have acupuncture needles in every one of my purses.
Do you guys do it? Like, do you do it to her?
Yeah,
God.
every time Heather's
when
there.
I had COVID a few years ago, we were watching The Grinch, and she just set up a massage table in front of the TV, and I was like, "Can you please put needles in my nose because I am so
stuffed.
I am so stuffed." But
that's the best. I actually just did that one recently. I was very congested when like everyone was down in December.
Yeah.
And she went right on the sides of my nose and it completely alleviated. I'm like, can I go home with them? Like, you need to leave them there because as soon as you take them out, I'm going to get congested again.
No,
but it really worked. Like, I got
yes.
to truly rest because of that.
And to breathe.
Yes.
But last night, sorry, it just reminded me, but last night one of our friends came over and her breasts were really tender. And so Felice was like, just lay on the couch. And so Felice was massaging that point on her foot.
Yeah, between the two toes, the two first
because
toes.
the channel, that was a liver channel.
The liver channel.
In between the two first ones?
Yeah, the big toe and the second toe, right in between, just kind of right there.
Yep.
It's liver 3, and it's one of the best for moving any stagnation in the liver channel because the liver channel goes up to the breasts. And she was experiencing PMS symptoms. So I said, lay down, let me massage it. And she goes, it's so sore. I'm like, it means you need it. It means there's blockage there. And immediately she's like, oh my gosh.
Every time a needle goes in, it hurts. I'm like, what is that point?
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
I want to know.
Exactly.
Like, clearly there's stagnation there. That's how I interpret it.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
It's more painful.
Yeah. And sometimes that means it needs to be moved more.
Yeah. Yeah. There's been a point lately, somewhere around here, that's been a killer. And I make her redo it every time because it hurts so badly.
Ooh.
What is that connected to?
I thought maybe there's lung?
There's the lung right here, lung 5, which we say it's the water point of the lung. So anything to do with breath, to do with post-sickness, post-viral, anything stuck in the chest. It's a point that I'll do where if someone is sick, I will maybe sometimes do one arm because they end up coughing. Immediately they're trying to get rid of something.
Wow.
Almost like that.
Wow.
Amazing other points here from the pericardium channel, the heart, and everything on the elbow here. We call them the Hasi points, which means it's the water point. And a lot of issues that we experience are too much heat or fire, right? It's our anxiety, it's our palpitations, it's too much heat, right? And heat rises. And so we use these water points to diminish everything that's imbalanced, right? When we think about it, it's the yang, it's the yin, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. What are some points that are like your go-to? So your friend came over, her breasts were tender, you went right to that point. What other ones do you have that are like
the face for...
Yeah, a lot
Tell
on
me
the
all
face,
about the
which is
face.
awesome.
Yeah.
One of my favorite is called yin tongue, in between the eyebrows right here. It's amazing because it just immediately kicks your nervous system from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic. It's, the pineal gland.
I was just going to say that.
Exactly.
Because as soon as I touch this or think this, I activate that center in my body.
Dogs
and then,
love it.
I guess my favorite point...
I love touching my dog right there.
Yes,
Actually, like
immediately.
petting him.
Actually, we were just talking about acupuncture for
Animals.
For animals. We just met up with a friend and her cat gets acupuncture, and that's the only time where her cat is not restless. I've had friends where they have performed acupuncture on their horses as a way to heal and as a way of relaxation. And when needles immediately enter their body, they are just so still and so meditative.
I'm so glad you brought this up because I always wondered. Because when I go to acupuncture, I'm all about intention, all about energy. So I'm like, okay, I'm coming here, I'm lying here, I'm consciously choosing this.
Yes.
And I'm consciously bringing in healing and relaxation into my body. I'm thinking about my breath. And then all of a sudden you're like out onto another planet. But then I wonder about animals that don't consciously choose it or or
about
know what is
What is
actually happening.
But then
so the
they
needles
respond.
actually
Yes.
impact
Oh, for sure.
them immediately.
Yeah.
And I
or soon
believe,
after.
yes, in these animals, I mean, everything happens energetically too. Like
I
they
wanna
probably
do this to
have.
Bam Bam so
Yes.
badly. He
You
needs
should,
it.
honestly.
They're
Are there
so
acupuncturists for
receptive.
animals?
Yes.
I think there is
yes,
one right by my house, but I
Yes.
truly didn't understand how it worked if they didn't
Yeah.
like if you didn't have the buy-in from the
Yeah,
animal. But you're
exactly.
saying it really does.
But I
Oh,
just truly
1,000%.
believe-
And I mean, animals too, they have such a deeper connection to energetic
Yes.
movements, right?
Absolutely.
And they feel it. They will. And so there's a couple points on my dog that I'll massage, and you can do acupressure to emulate acupuncture too.
Yeah.
And when he has the zoomies or when he's just barking like you're a little bit too crazy, I kind of pick him up and I massage these points and immediately relaxes.
So cool.
And it's wonderful. And, I think
has a lot
people
of
might,
energy.
he's a French bulldog. So,
Aw. So what other acupressure points on our body would you say are like a
I
go-to?
like to touch that point for anxiety.
The
a lot.
thymus?
the
Yes.
one right here.
Yeah.
So it's REN 17. It's right in line with the breast on the midline. It's one of
Okay.
the best because we say it's the opening part of the pericardium and heart channel. So it's amazing for anxiety, for calming us down.
And
a
you
lot of
just,
times
like,
it's sore.
massage it?
Yeah, massage it. And I would
Yeah.
say massage for 2 to 3 minutes at least, because that's when you get a similar stimulation to acupuncture needles, right? Acupuncture needles, you go in and out because it's
Yeah.
able to hit that meridian system, which
Yeah.
is below the dermis and the skin. But if you're massaging it, you're also able to do it. And so what's powerful about the medicine is that people can feel empowered and actually feel the effects, right? There's certain points you can massage for constipation, for panic attacks.
What's constipation?
I love to do a combination of Sanjiao 6, which is on the arm. It's 4 finger widths above the wrist, right in between the two muscles over here. And the point of this is that it increases the fluids and liquid movement in our body.
Yeah.
Either arm? Left
Either
or
arm,
right?
yeah. So meridians mostly run bilaterally. So you can do left or right. You can do both for more stimulation.
Yeah.
And then the other one is kidney 6, which is right underneath the medial ankle bone or the inner ankle bone.
The one point that, sorry, my leather pants.
So cute. Love it.
The one point that I have been doing for a while because I've got issues is 4 finger widths down from the side of your knee, and massaging that point really helps relieve pain in my gut.
Yeah, it's stomach 36.
Yeah,
is
so
one of
that's
the best.
that's the channel that helps with gut issues.
Cool.
Yeah. So we're
It's
just very in
fascinating.
tune with touching your body and massaging it a
Yeah,
lot.
and I think there needs to be more normalcy around. Let me massage a point that is sore. Let me feel around to be like, oh, why is that sore? And it's just really informative to
Yes.
understand what channels are in balance or why it needs to be massaged. And I would tell someone if it's sore, go massage it and spend time massaging it.
I was having this issue, and it may be like texting, but it would flare up, go away, flare up, go away. And it was in between, like
Yes.
right in this area.
Large intestine 4. It's one of my favorite points.
Okay, tell me about it.
It's amazing because it's one point if you pair this one with the one in between the toes, it's kind of the synergistic point of the hands and feet. And together we call it the 4 gates.
Oh, that makes sense.
And
Yeah.
it moves our chi, our energy, like rapidly, which is so great. And so most of the time, all of our energy's stuck. We're stressed, it's held in here. And so those 4 points to massage is one of the best to just kind of relieve a lot of things, from headaches to pain to sickness. The energetics of this channel also goes into the face. So it's great for anything face related, congestion, headaches too.
It's so fascinating. What are 4 trends or things that are seen? I could think of like 2 you're going to say already, but I want to hear. What are 4 or 5 trends or wellness things that you see here in America that you're just like, that's actually not it?
Do you want to start? Or
I know what you're gonna say.
I'm going to start with smoothies.
I knew you were gonna
Yeah.
say that.
Smoothies, I think there's a lot of it that is a red flag for the body. I mean, first of all, you're blending all of the fruits and sugar, which is a glucose spike. And even in Western medicine, it's not great, right? People are putting sugar into their body first thing in their morning. It's spiking their sugar levels, and it's affecting their hormones. It's affecting how their body processes it. And a lot of people won't have a breakfast, but drink a smoothie instead. Second red flag is that it's extremely cold. And cold in our body, especially first thing in the morning, is going to completely stagnate everything. It's going to affect your gut health. It's going to affect your energy. And when we think about how our body can actually process foods, it processes, and our digestive enzymes work best at 37 Celsius or 98.6 Fahrenheit. And when you cool it down, everything is slowed down. And in Chinese medicine, we say our digestive fire is diminished. It goes away. And that's when everything from bloating happens, fatigue, lethargy, gas, everything that happens from the gut starts to happen because it's so cold and there's so much sugar. So I think there needs to be an understanding of why are you drinking smoothies, right? People love it because they can throw in supplements, or put everything in a drinkable drink. But in reality, we should be chewing and eating it, and also eating our supplements rather than throwing everything in. And I think it needs to be just kind of a new balance. Yeah.
Though I would say, going back on supplements, we grew up not taking any supplements, and the supplements and vitamins that you are getting from supplements, we were just getting it from the foods and the whole foods we were eating. So coming to the US, that's when we were introduced to supplements, and our parents now take it because they're a little bit older, but they buy their vitamins here in the US.
They'll go to CVS, be like, do I need my omega-3s? And they're like, I'm just going to buy it here because in Hong Kong, you can't really find it. Yeah. Which is fascinating. Again, it's a balance. And if you need it, you need it, right? But it also goes to show that the supplementation and the vitamins in food here is very different than the rest of the world. It goes back to the soil quality. It's a whole nother conversation.
So bad.
Yeah.
I know.
And I guess number 2 that follows on with the foods, like salads and raw vegetables. I think from a digestive perspective, eating raw vegetables is a lot harder to digest. And you still get the same nutrients when you cook your vegetables. And so Felice and I only eat cooked vegetables. Yes, here and there I dabble with salads, but I can tell that whenever I eat it, my body feels very stagnated. Yeah. So for lunch, it's been so normalized, especially being in finance, where we would just eat salad in front of your at your desk. But now we traditionally just eat a bunch of warm foods. And just get our vitamins that way. So that's, I would say, number 2 that ties with the cold foods.
Yeah. And
I would say that with the cold foods, if you want to eat cold foods, you somehow need to balance it with something that is hot. And in traditional Chinese medicine, when we say that foods are hot and foods are cold, it's not the temperature of it, but it's the
energetic of it.
It's the energetic of it. So for example, ginger is really, really hot. Mangoes are really, really hot.
Mangoes.
Mangoes.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Crab, for example, is super cool. Yes. So when we would eat crabs growing up, we would always end the meal with ginger tea to warm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to eat cold foods, temperature wise, like salad, somehow balance it with something warm. Yeah. And so, when I speak to friends who do love smoothies, and my boyfriend as well, I try to have him drink ginger tea afterwards, or something that cools the body, but warms the body.
Yeah. This morning I had cottage cheese and berries, and I knew that was too cool for me. So I poured so much cinnamon on it. I was like, let's warm this up.
Exactly.
And it really makes a difference. It really does.
Exactly. Oh, for sure. And it's, again, finding balance. And when we think about foods and us as body, we're nature beings and we respond to the environment, right? So people are like, what about in the summer? Can I drink cold drinks? I'm like, yeah, if you're hot, of course, your body is adjusting. But when you're in New York City and it's snowing right now and you have a smoothie first thing in the morning, you're going to be cold for the rest of the day.
And then a nice coffee.
Yeah. And yes, exactly. It's going to change how you feel. But if you start your day, try 1 week, warm lemon water in the morning, warm foods, cooked foods, soups, it's going to drastically change your energy. It's going to drastically change your gut health. And when I tell patients that, they're like, wow, that was transformative. And I've never heard this. But I just say, try it and tell me how you feel afterwards.
Yeah. I think our biggest recommendation too, in terms of how to eat well and nourishing, is to eat with the seasons. There's a reason why nature is producing those particular fruits or vegetables or types of foods during that season, because it's telling you and from our own rhythms that intake that vegetable, intake that fruit, intake what nature is providing you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. For example, pears, right? Pears are abundant around like, late winter, springtime. And that's when there's more wind, it's dry. And so pears are very nourishing, for example. Or the season of spring, it's very wood, it's the liver. And what is great for the liver are green foods and sour foods. And that's when a lot of citruses start to come about going to the summer too. So it's really in tune with how our bodies are, 5 element wise, and how we balance each other out. Yeah.
It's interesting because I'm making a connection to this in cycle syncing.
Yes.
And like when you're in your ovulation phase, you're eating a lot of the cooler things.
Yes.
And like the spring phase, I guess that's the follicular, you're doing like more of the citrus.
Exactly.
It's so interesting.
And we have seasons in our body, especially,
women.
Females. And I love it. Your luteal phase, when you hit it, you have more energy. And also why, working out or moving to how your cycle is so important, because when we're on our periods, it's the most yin time. It's the most dormant time. It's almost similar to winter, right? When people are like, I'm sleeping 9 hours, 10 hours, is that normal? I'm like, yeah. I mean, when you think about thousands of years ago, we weren't out and about all winter. It was cold. We were inside, we were snug, animals hibernate, and that's okay. Anyways, yeah.
Any other real red flags in wellness trends?
Yes, I would say cold plunging, but the misunderstanding of how to cold plunge. Because when we think about thousands of years ago in China, yes, there was the cold river. People would jump into it. But I would always have to say, I don't think anyone should be in a cold plunge for more than 3 minutes max. And I always would say, if you can, do contrast therapy, have a sauna. So sauna, cold plunge, and always end hot. Because if you, let's say, do cryotherapy or cold plunge and you're a woman who's naturally cold, you're going to stay cold throughout the whole day, and it's going to impact your fertility, your digestion. I would say never cold plunge on your period too, because it's going to stagnate everything. And I think it's more so understanding, is your constitution and your body right to cold plunge? There's so much research about it's amazing for anxiety, for your mental health, which I agree. However, is it the right time for you? And can you pair it and end with hot?
Yeah. In the yogic science, they say they give a specific way of taking cold showers. And they would even say like you can wear something around this area to protect the reproductive organs. And it's like get your feet in first and your hands and like try not to get this area in.
Yeah, I love that.
Tell us more about this yoga science and the yoga holistic.
I practice and teach Kundalini yoga, and there's like a whole science and lifestyle that kind of goes with yogic science. And a lot, like I said before, a lot of it I think is similar to Chinese medicine, or there's just these overlaps of these ancient practices that have always worked, and now we see a lot of them today. But one other thing is waking up 5 a.m. or even before that for meditation during the ambrosial hours, that time of just quiet stillness before anything else is happening on the planet. You're like ahead of everything. You have that time to just like think and do a lot of subconscious work. And then there's also, of course, like foods that they recommend as well. Mung beans is a big one.
Love mung
also
beans.
huge in traditional Chinese
It's very
medicine.
cooling. It's great for skin, especially if you have acne breakouts.
Where do you find them? I always have trouble finding them. I go to my health food store. They're like, we'll order it for you because you
honestly,
can't find it anywhere.
I get
Asian
everything.
markets.
I get everything in Chinatown. I get all the herbs, and a lot of the herbs that we get, like for example, jujube dates, they're all dried. But all you have to do is just soak it in water or make teas out of it, and then that's when it becomes more nourishing, and you can also eat it. But
I think there's also, so I do want to chime in where a lot of herbs or foods or fruit, like we cook our fruit, right?
Yes.
Our goji berries, our jujube dates, we don't eat raw. You see goji berries sprinkled on a acai bowl, right? To get the nutrients and the benefits of it, it needs to be cooked. So we ate it in soups, in teas growing up. And I think because it's warm too, right? And so your body absorbs it more when it's warm. Again, back to our digestive enzymes and how we can actually pull in the nutrients into our body.
Yes. But yes, recommendation in New York is Chinatown, or you can also WeEat, that grocery delivery system too.
Yeah, WEEE with an exclamation point.
Yeah, that one as well. But this also reminds me about how in traditional Chinese medicine, we believe that you need to always be in bed by 11 p.m. because that's when your liver starts regenerating, and that's when your whole body starts detoxing.
11 p.m.
11 p.m. That's like your natural, your your natural cycles and rhythms of your sleeping.
Yeah. 11. Yeah. And it reminds me how we have an organ clock, right?
Yes.
And how every part of the day, an organ is supposed to be the most active. And when it's the most active, you have to nourish it. For example, spleen and stomach wakes up between 7 and 9, 9 and 11. And the spleen and stomach are yin and yang organs paired. And it's about receiving food that time. So, and that is why breakfast is so important. And when people ask me, what do you think about fasting? I think fasting is great if you need it, but I think it's a trend now where people will fast to a point where it actually affects their organs more. And I always see that their spleen and stomach get weaker and weaker and weaker, hence why they don't desire food in the morning.
Yeah.
It leads to, water accumulation, weight gain, mental fog, because they're not eating a breakfast.
Yes. So from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m.?
I would say 7 to 9 is, well, technically 7 to 11 is both the spleen and the stomach, because every organ has 2 hours. So I say if you can eat food before 11 and a nourishing, warm, protein-rich breakfast, it's going to do wonders.
Yeah.
Before
so we
11,
have eggs every morning and avocados as the healthy fats every single morning.
Every single morning. You never got sick of it?
No.
We find different variations of how to eat it.
I mean, eggs you could do a lot with.
Exactly.
Yeah, you could do a lot with them.
Yeah. And, vegetarians or people who have allergies to eggs, there's so many alternatives. In Asia, we didn't grow up having a breakfast, right? Our breakfast was a meat, a fish or a piece of chicken
with rice
or a soup, or even congee, something like, porridge that is so yummy. And I think helping people understand that you don't have to have a breakfast food for breakfast. I'd always also say, if you can stay away from a sweet breakfast, like a smoothie bowl or or pancakes, right? Because again, it's going to spike your sugar levels. It's going to mess up the hormones. And you don't have enough of the protein to hold you down.
I guess that shifts back to like another wellness trend that we like to stay away from, and it's dieting, which Felice just touched on a little bit. But for us, we are very regimented on eating 3 times a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and eating smaller portions. And we find that that's honestly a better way to nourish our body instead of stagnating it and trying to train our body not to digest properly, because you don't know what signals you're sending to your body. The body's just trying to figure it out.
And from a medicine standpoint, it's all about the spleen. And our spleen is the first organ that receives any food, and it loves consistency and it loves warmth. But again, I have to say that it's so cultural, it's so different. And so to bring these practices here that almost are the antithesis of what American wellness is, it's been difficult, but it's been very eye-opening. But again, finding a balance of both and how someone responds to it.
All of the things that you said are red flags were things that I had to work so hard to break, like juices, smoothies, anything cold, salads, and then also not necessarily dieting, but kind of just like going about my life, not thinking about when the next meal would come, and then I would be famished and like, oh my gosh, I have to eat, and then eating like anything without a lot of protein in it, because I was plant-based for a while. And recently I've made the changes of not doing the cold, making sure that I'm eating 3 meals from like 3 to 4 hours between each meal, trying to aim for 30 grams of protein each meal. On the days that I don't truly consciously choose that, and I forget, or we work for too long and we forgot to sit down and order lunch in time, whatever, I feel such a difference. Like last night I said to my husband, I was like, I know I didn't eat enough protein today because I'm looking just to snack and I want sugar. And I'm like, this is not who I am anymore. And this is what I always did. And I didn't realize it until I tried something new. It is everything you just said. In the very, very recent past, I've made the changes and I've seen the changes. I felt the changes.
That's amazing.
And I would bloat so much. I would always be cold. I would always be bloated. I looked pregnant. I would have gas. And then there was something else that I was thinking of as another symptom I've had. And now it's like, that's all gone and taken care of.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that also intuitively you're just like, wow, my body feels drastic. And I love how you mentioned the sugar cravings at night, right? When people don't eat enough protein.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, they're like, I always crave sugar or food at night. I'm like, eat more during the day. Have a bigger breakfast, a bigger lunch, because it just means you're not eating enough. And also the crave of sugar is an indication your spleen is weaker. So what can you do to strengthen it? And again, it's eating 3 times a day and having a protein-rich breakfast.
Yeah.
And then in time, your sugar cravings go away.
I live my day by foods. I plan my day with food.
Yeah,
It's so
I mean,
important.
It's
Yeah.
very
It really
oriented.
is.
I mean, or food oriented in Asian culture.
Yeah, we
Even
just
with
Can you
grew
tell
up
me your
always
plan for
talking
today?
about- Yeah, so after this, we're just gonna go home and I'm gonna cook her
Yeah,
lunch. That's our
what are you
plan
going to
before. I
don't know,
have
we'll-
a bunch
we'll
of.
find something
I
in the
have
fridge.
a bunch of. Well, I have vegetables that I'm gonna cook, and then I have some frozen meats that I plan to unfreeze.
Yeah.
We are very, we're very beef heavy, so we eat a lot of grass-fed beef as our protein because women in general, like, you know, because we bleed, we are very blood deficient, and so we eat a lot of beef as our main source of meat. So probably something with beef.
Yeah. I love red
protein.
meat.
Protein and vegetables. Oh, and sweet potatoes and yams. That's our go-to diet.
Yeah.
We always have that in our fridge.
I need to know what vegetables you have at home right now.
Chinese vegetables.
Okay, what are they?
Bok choy.
Well, I guess bok choy is the one. Bok choy is a vegetable that is more institutionalized that you can get at Trader Joe's or Whole Foods. But I love to get vegetables in Chinatown, and there's this one main vegetable that I love that you just stir fry with garlic and olive oil. It's called pea shoots. That's super tasty. I like eating that, and obviously there's bok choy. But any green vegetable that you can see in these supermarkets.
Are so fresh. There's
You know
like
what, actually-
choy or like choy sum.
Have you heard of bitter melon?
Are they grown here?
There
Are some farms.
they're grown in farms, but I don't particularly know where.
in New York.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I know in California they do.
Yes. The one, actually, you probably know better, but the
bitter
one
melon.
vegetable that we ate growing up is bitter melon, and it's
Or
this
bitter
really
gourd. They
bitter
also have
gourd.
it in Indian culture too.
It's this really long green melon, and it's super super bitter, but it's
But it's
very
one of the best for the skin.
Yes.
But also our health because the temperature of it is cooling, right? But it's not to a point that's too cooling that it's not great for someone who's so cold. I mean, again, it's all balances, but it's green, so it goes to the liver. It's really bitter, and bitter drains and detoxes the body. So we used to eat it growing up. We'd slice it really thin, stir fry it with some garlic and egg, and it was so good. But yeah, it's something that if I find it and it's there available, and in California they'll have it at farmers markets, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, it's perfect for the spring.
and anything and everything mushroom.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with mushrooms. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for all the details. I love hearing all the details.
I mean, obviously we're coming from one perspective, right?
Yeah.
And we're
but
so open to different perspectives.
I
as
just think
well.
it's so nice to have a variety, like spending a season exploring this more and eating more of those foods, seeing how it feels, and even being able to receive the nutrients you wouldn't get from other vegetables. That's why I wanted to know like which ones exactly.
Yeah.
Because if I'm eating broccoli and cauliflower every day and you're eating those vegetables every day, you're getting nutrients that I'm not getting. I'm getting nutrients that you're not getting. And I feel like it's so important to learn and understand like what you can get.
I'm
and
like
what you can
thinking,
do.
okay, like in a traditional Trader Joe's, what can you get that's not broccoli or cauliflower?
Cabbage.
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 Actually,
We just had
we eat-
cabbage actually.
We eat a bunch of cabbage, purple cabbage as well.
Okay.
I stir fry that a lot.
Yum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we're all
soups
starving.
Yeah, I know.
my
My
belly's
belly's grumbling. I'm like,
I
this sounds good.
want to come back to your skincare line. So it's launching next month.
Yes.
Are you the retailer? Will you be having a website for retailing, or are you going to sell it anywhere else?
We're launching on our website first, D2C, moonbowskin.com, and we're actually launching with 3 products. So
Amazing.
a cleanser, a serum, and a moisturizer to share to the world that skincare doesn't need to be overwhelming. You just need 3 simple steps.
Yeah.
But in these 3 simple steps, we also want to introduce traditional Chinese medicine herbs that are so beneficial for you externally, but also internally. And our whole mission is to harmonize skin and spirit. So in other words, focusing on holistic health. And that's the whole premise and foundation and ethos of traditional Chinese medicine. In Western medicine too, it's all separated into different, categories. You see a doctor for, bone problems, you see a doctor for eye issues, like all of that. But in traditional Chinese medicine, you see
It's
one
all
doctor for
yeah.
everything. And that's what we're trying to share, right? And most importantly, the mindfulness and emotional side of the medicine that traditional Chinese medicine really focuses on.
Mm-hmm.
Like
I remember when I first studied, I think I was drawn to an article or a piece written thousands of years ago, and it was saying that all ailments in the body start from emotion. Because we're human beings, we feel emotions, and it's so beautiful that we feel emotions, the heavy, the light, but we have to understand how that changes our physical symptoms.
Yeah. It's like when you go to the acupuncturist, right? Your acupuncturist probably sits you down before you get acupuncture, and, she or he will ask, like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And so, I sometimes say that Felice is sometimes my therapist as well.
Totally.
Yeah, because emotions give me a huge understanding of which organs are imbalanced, right? Every organ has an emotion tied to it. Our lungs, grief; large intestine, letting go; our spleen, overthinking and worry; our heart is joy; kidney, fear. And you really, really see imbalances when someone is really stuck in a state. And I would say the biggest is stress, anxiety, frustration, anger, tied to our liver.
Yeah.
Hence why everyone's liver isn't detoxing to the way it's supposed to.
Interesting. Yeah. I love you both.
Yeah,
This
I
was
feel like
so
we could
fun.
chat, and I would
We
love
could
to hear more
literally
about
talk
you
for
too.
hours.
I would love, like, any events that you host, I would love to learn more about, the sciences behind your practices.
Yogic science.
Yeah.
I would love to share it with you.
Yes. There's so much synergy to traditional Chinese medicine.
Yeah, totally. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you guys enjoy the conversation as much as I did. We are like cooking up some ideas together. We're in that space of creation and things that we'd like to do, next steps together. And I personally can't wait to try out their products. They shared a sample of each one with me. Let me tell you, I did not say this yet during the recording or before the recording, but their skin was off the charts. Like, the glow was real. And they attributed a lot of that to the pearl powder that's in their moisturizer, which I'm really excited to try. They were so lovely. If you guys are interested in trying out their products, I'm going to link it in the show notes. I'm also going to tag them on Instagram so you can follow along with them. But just a wealth of knowledge. Dr. Felice actually practices acupuncture in LA. So if you're in the LA area, you could definitely check that out. And I hope you enjoy it. Thank you so much for being here. As always, it makes me so happy to see you guys tuning in, sharing it on social, and even the ratings, the reviews on the podcast. It means the world to me. Thank you for being here, and I can't wait to see you next time. Sat Nam.